the television remote was a gunshot in the quiet room. One moment, the serene, false laughter of a sitcom audience filled the space. The next, a silence so profound it felt like a vacuum, sucking the air from my lungs. Get out! His voice wasn't loud. That was the worst part. It was flat, cold, stripped of all the familiar warmth that used to wrap around me like a blanket. He didn't look at me. He stared at the dark, blank screen as if it held answers I could never provide. I was curled in my usual corner of the worn corduroy sofa, a biology textbook open but unread on my lap. I'd been pretending to study for an hour, my ears straining for the crunch of gravel that would signal her return. Mom was late. Again. Dad. The words died. His jaw was a granite ledge. The lamplight caught the new streaks of silver at his temples, silver I was sure I'd put there. I won't say it again, Maya. Get out of this house. It wasn't our house anymore. It had become a museum of before and after, and I was the exhibit everyone wanted to forget. The after had started 8 months ago, a slow creep that became a landslide. Mom's new job as an events coordinator at the Grand Marquis Hotel. The later nights, the new clothes that smelled of perfume and stale conference rooms. The whispered phone calls that stopped when I entered the kitchen. Dad's questions, met with sighs and deflections. I stood, my legs unsteady. The textbook slid to the floor with a thud. He didn't flinch. I walked past him, my shoulder brushing the back of his armchair. He smelled of sawdust and bitter coffee. He'd been in his workshop all day, building nothing, just drowning in the noise of the router. I climbed the stairs, each step a mountain. My room was a teenager's sanctuary turned prison. Posters of distant galaxies and quotes about resilience felt like cruel jokes. I didn't pack. I just sat on the edge of my bed, listening to the heavy silence below. He wasn't coming to take it back. This was the culmination, the final verdict on my crime. Looking too much like her, being too much a reminder, and, most unforgivably, taking her side. I hadn't, not really. But in Dad's eyes, silence was complicity. When the fight started leaking from under their bedroom door, I'd freeze. When he'd ask me, "Where is she, Maya? Who is she with?" My stammering, "I don't know," felt, even to me, like a lie. I was 16, caught in the no man's land between them, loyal to both and thereby traitor to both. The headlights cut through my blinds around midnight, painting stripes of guilt across my walls. I heard her key in the lock, the careful, slightly unsteady click. Her heels on the tile. Then his voice, a low rumble. Then hers, rising in defensive spikes. I pulled the pillow over my head, but the walls were thin. Always suspecting, always accusing. Coming home at 1 a.m. on a Tuesday, Sarah. What am I supposed to think? Suffocating me. I can't breathe in this house. A crash, a vase, a plate, my heart hammered against my ribs. Then, the worst sound, her crying. Not the angry sobs of their fights, but a raw, helpless sound. And his footsteps, storming back to the living room. I stayed quiet. I stayed quiet as the house settled into a poisoned stillness. I stayed quiet as the night bled into a gray, damp dawn. I stayed quiet as I heard her car leave early, the sound of it seeming to tear a piece of the morning away with it. I went downstairs. He was in the kitchen, same clothes as yesterday, staring into a cold cup of coffee. The shattered remains of her favorite ceramic mug, the one I'd made her in 3rd grade, were in the trash. "I'm going to school," I said, my voice a stranger's. He nodded, not looking up. "Take your..." I didn't take my stuff. I went to school a ghost. The hallways buzzed with mundane dramas. Who liked who? The unfair math test, the upcoming pep rally. I moved through it all encased in glass. My best friend, Chloe, took one look at my face and linked her arm through mine, asking no questions. She was my refuge, but even her steady presence couldn't melt the ice in my chest. "You can stay with me," she whispered in study hall. "My mom already said, as long as you need." I nodded, tears pricking for the first time, not out of sadness but gratitude for this lifeline. Maybe just tonight, but I knew. Dad's "get out" had the ring of permanence. He was a man who measured twice and cut once. He'd made his cut. After school, I couldn't face the empty, angry house. I went to the library, then to a park, killing time until I knew Chloe's mom would be home from work. I called Mom's cell. It went straight to voicemail, her cheerful, professional message a dagger. "Hi, you've reached Sarah. Leave a message. I didn't. At Chloe's, enveloped in the warm chaos of her family, the smell of frying onions, her little brother arguing about video games, I felt both comforted and utterly alien. This was a functioning ecosystem, and I was an invasive, wounded species. I slept fitfully on an air mattress, haunted by the click of the TV remote. The next day was Saturday. I told Chloe I had to go home, to get clothes, to face it. She offered to come. I refused. This was a solo descent. The house was still, but differently so. Not the simmering quiet of Dad's anger, but an empty, hollow quiet. His truck was gone. I let myself in, the familiar creak of the door of betrayal. It was tidy. He'd cleaned. The absence of the shattered mug was a clean amputation. In my room, I finally packed a duffel bag. Jeans, sweaters, my laptop, the framed photo of the three of us at the coast when I was 10, our faces windblown and happy. As I zipped the bag closed, I heard a car door shut outside. My breath hitched. Dad, Mom, I walked to my window, hidden behind the curtain. It wasn't Dad's truck. It was a sleek, silver sedan. A man got out. He was tall, wearing a charcoal peacoat and sunglasses despite the overcast day. He had the easy, confident posture of someone who belonged everywhere. He checked his phone, then looked up at our house, his gaze scanning the windows. A small, professional smile touched his lips. A cold wave, distinct from the fear of Dad's anger, washed over me. This was the scent of the unknown, the tangible proof of the after. This was the world Mom was staying out late for. He walked up the path, not to the front door, but around the side, towards the back garden gate. He moved with a familiarity that made my skin crawl. I flew down the stairs, silent in my socks, and ducked into the pantry off the kitchen, leaving the door open a crack. I heard the back gate latch click. Then footsteps on the patio. A pause. Then a soft knock on the kitchen's glass sliding door. I held my breath. The knock came again, more insistent. I couldn't see him from the pantry. I heard the faint, familiar squeak as the sliding door was pushed open. He'd let himself in. My heart thundered. Who was this man who knew our stiff door needed a lift and shove? His shoes, polished leather loafers, clicked on the tile floor. He stopped in the middle of the kitchen. I could see a slice of him now, the edge of his coat, his hand resting on the back of a chair where Dad always sat. Sarah, he called out. His voice was pleasant, baritone, expecting an answer. Silence. He sighed, a sound of mild inconvenience. He pulled out the chair and sat down. I saw him take off his sunglasses and place them on the table. He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and put it to his ear. Hey, it's me. I'm at the house. You're not here. A pause. He listened, then chuckled. It was a dry, humorless sound. No, it's fine. Just wrapping up loose ends, remember? You said the paperwork might be in the home office. Yeah, I'll take a look. She's not here either, probably for the best. See you soon. He ended the call and stood up. His footsteps moved towards the hall, towards Dad's study, the room Mom had started calling the home office a few months ago. Loose ends, paperwork. My blood went from cold to hot. This wasn't a social call. This was a mission. Rage, pure and clarifying, burned through my fear. This was my house, my dad's chair, my mom's life. He was wrapping up. I slipped out of the pantry. My eyes fell on the heavy, cast iron skillet drying by the sink. I didn't think. I grabbed it, the weight solid and reassuring in my hand. I followed him, soundless on the tiles, then on the carpeted hall. The door to the study was ajar. I saw his back as he stood by Dad's filing cabinet, a drawer open, flipping through folders. What are you doing? My voice surprised me. It was low, steady, and deadly calm. He spun around, fast, but his face showed only a flicker of surprise, quickly smoothed into that professional courtesy. He looked me up and down, taking in the duffel bag on my shoulder, the skillet held loosely at my side. His eyes were a pale, assessing blue. You must be Maya, he said, his smile not reaching his eyes. I'm Robert, a friend of your mother's. She asked me to pick up some documents. My mother isn't here, I said. And you're in my father's study. Those aren't her documents. He spread his hands, a gesture of harmless intent. It's all family stuff, Maya. Tax returns, property records. Your mother needs them. Things are in flux. Get out, I said, echoing the word that had exiled me. His smile tightened. There's no need for that tone. I'm here to help. You're trespassing. Get out, or I will call the police. I hefted the skillet just an inch. After I introduce you to Le Creuset. A flash of irritation crossed his face, stripping away the pleasant veneer. For a second, I saw something harder, colder. Then he reassembled the smile. Feisty, like your mother. All right, no problem. He carefully closed the file drawer, making a show of touching nothing else. He walked towards me, and I stood my ground in the doorway, forcing him to walk around me. He smelled of sandalwood and mint. He paused in the hall, looking back at me. She's choosing a different life, Maya. You might want to start getting used to it. He left then, his footsteps firm and unconcerned. I watched from the window as his silver car disappeared down the street. The weight of the skillet suddenly felt immense. I slid down the wall onto the floor, the adrenaline draining away, leaving me shaking and nauseous. She's choosing a different life. The words hung in the air of the empty house. And in that moment, I understood with crystalline clarity. Dad hadn't just told me to get out. He'd seen the future Robert represented. He was evacuating me from a sinking ship, even if his method was to throw me overboard. He couldn't protect Mom anymore. Maybe he couldn't protect me from her choices. But he could make me leave the scene of the crime. And I had stayed quiet. Until the man showed up. I didn't call the police. What would I say? A friend of my mother's looked at some files. I called Mom again. This time, she answered on the third ring. Maya, honey, I'm in a meeting. Is everything okay? Her voice was bright, strained, the public relations version of herself. A man named Robert was in the house. Going through Dad's files. A beat of silence. Then, a forced lightness. Oh, Robert, yes, I asked him to grab a few things for me. I'm so sorry if he startled you. Did he find the insurance folder? I closed my eyes. She was already on his side of the story. Mom, who is he? He's a colleague. A good friend. He's helping me with some things. It's complicated, sweetie. Her voice dropped to a whisper. How's your father? He told me to get out. Another, longer silence. I heard her breath hitch. Oh, Maya, I'm so sorry. He's hurting. We all are. Where are you? Chloe's. Good. That's good. Stay there for now. Let things cool down. I'll figure this out. I'll call you tonight, I promise. She sounded like she was convincing herself. Mom, are you with him? With Robert. I have to go. Maya, I love you. The line went dead. I sat on the floor for a long time. The house, my home, felt like a crime scene and I was the only witness. I finished packing a bigger suitcase. I took more than clothes. My childhood stuffed owl, my sketchbooks, the necklace my dad gave me for my 13th birthday. I was sifting through the wreckage for salvage. I wrote a note, not for Dad, who had banished words between us. For the house itself, I left it on the kitchen table, under the salt shaker. A man was here, Robert. He was in the study. I made him leave. I'm at Chloe's. It was a statement of fact. A warning flare. I wheeled my suitcase down the path, a pathetic procession of one. I didn't look back. Life at Chloe's became a temporary permanence. Her parents, Linda and Mark, were kind, discreet, giving me space while ensuring I ate and knew I was welcome. I went to school. I did homework. I smiled when required. I was a perfect, polite ghost. Mom called, as promised, but her calls were full of vague assurances and distracted affection. We'll get a place soon, just you and me. Robert knows a great lawyer. Your father is being unreasonable. Robert's name was a constant, ugly refrain. I learned he was a commercial real estate developer. He was divorced. He was supportive. Dad did not call. A week into my exile, I came back to Chloe's after school to find Mom's car in the driveway. My heart leapt, a trapped bird against my ribs. She was on the porch, talking to Linda. She looked polished. Her hair was a new, softer style. She wore a tailored jacket I'd never seen. She looked like a successful stranger. Maya, she enveloped me in a hug that smelled of new perfume. Oh, I've missed you. Linda gave me a sympathetic smile and went inside. Come for a drive with me, Mom said, her eyes bright. We need to talk. We drove to a chic coffee shop far from our neighborhood. She ordered herbal tea. I got a hot chocolate, a childish choice I made out of defiance. I've left him, Maya. Officially, I've filed. The words were delivered softly, but they hit like stones. Because of Robert. She flinched. It's not that simple. Your father and we've been drifting apart for years. We were so young. I felt invisible. Robert, he sees me. He listens. He also lets himself into our house and rifles through our files, I said flatly. He was trying to help. She insisted, her hand covering mine. Maya, I want you with me. Robert has a beautiful condo. There's a room for you. It has an incredible view. You'll go to a better school district. The offer felt like being offered a shiny cage. What about, Dad? Her face closed. Your father needs to work through his anger. He pushed you out, Maya. Remember that. I would never do that. It was a masterful manipulation, using my fresh wound as her leverage. And part of me, the hurt, abandoned part, wanted to lean into it. To choose the parent who seemed to want me. I need to think, I mumbled. Her face fell, but she masked it with a smile. Of course, no pressure. She slid a key across the table. This is for the condo. 14B. Come anytime. Just text me. I took the key. It felt cold and heavy. That night, I lay awake on Chloe's air mattress, the key digging into my palm. I thought of Dad, alone in the house with the ghost of the shattered mug. I thought of Mom, in a condo with a view, with Robert. I thought of the man's pale blue eyes, assessing my home, my life, as a loose end. And I made a decision. I wouldn't be a loose end. I didn't call the police. What would I say? A friend of my mother's looked at some files. I called Mom again. This time, she answered on the third ring. Maya, honey, I'm in a meeting. Is everything okay? Her voice was bright, strained, the public relations version of herself. A man named Robert was in the house, going through Dad's files. A beat of silence. Then, a forced lightness. Oh, Robert, yes, I asked him to grab a few things for me. I'm so sorry if he startled you. Did he find the insurance folder? I closed my eyes. She was already on his side of the story. Mom, who is he? He's a colleague. A good friend. He's helping me with some things. It's complicated, sweetie. Her voice dropped to a whisper. How's your father? He told me to get out. Another, longer silence. I heard her breath hitch. Oh, Maya, I'm so sorry. He's hurting. We all are. Where are you? Chloe's. Good. That's good. Stay there for now. Let things cool down. I'll figure this out. I'll call you tonight, I promise. She sounded like she was convincing herself. Mom, are you with him? With Robert. I have to go. Maya, I love you. The line went dead. I sat on the floor for a long time. The house, my home, felt like a crime scene and I was the only witness. I finished packing a bigger suitcase. I took more than clothes. My childhood stuffed owl, my sketchbooks, the necklace my dad gave me for my 13th birthday. I was sifting through the wreckage for salvage. I wrote a note, not for Dad, who had banished words between us. For the house itself, I left it on the kitchen table, under the salt shaker. A man was here, Robert. He was in the study. I made him leave. I'm at Chloe's. It was a statement of fact. A warning flare. I wheeled my suitcase down the path, a pathetic procession of one. I didn't look back. Life at Chloe's became a temporary permanence. Her parents, Linda and Mark, were kind, discreet, giving me space while ensuring I ate and knew I was welcome. I went to school. I did homework. I smiled when required. I was a perfect, polite ghost. Mom called, as promised, but her calls were full of vague assurances and distracted affection. We'll get a place soon, just you and me. Robert knows a great lawyer. Your father is being unreasonable. Robert's name was a constant, ugly refrain. I learned he was a commercial real estate developer. He was divorced. He was supportive. Dad did not call. A week into my exile, I came back to Chloe's after school to find Mom's car in the driveway. My heart leapt, a trapped bird against my ribs. She was on the porch, talking to Linda. She looked polished. Her hair was a new, softer style. She wore a tailored jacket I'd never seen. She looked like a successful stranger. Maya, she enveloped me in a hug that smelled of new perfume. Oh, I've missed you. Linda gave me a sympathetic smile and went inside. Come for a drive with me, Mom said, her eyes bright. We need to talk. We drove to a chic coffee shop far from our neighborhood. She ordered herbal tea. I got a hot chocolate, a childish choice I made out of defiance. I've left him, Maya. Officially, I've filed. The words were delivered softly, but they hit like stones. Because of Robert, she flinched. It's not that simple. Your father and we've been drifting apart for years. We were so young. I felt invisible. Robert, he sees me. He listens. He also lets himself into our house and rifles through our files, I said flatly. He was trying to help. She insisted, her hand covering mine. Maya, I want you with me. Robert has a beautiful condo. There's a room for you. It has an incredible view. You'll go to a better school district. The offer felt like being offered a shiny cage. What about, Dad? Her face closed. Your father needs to work through his anger. He pushed you out, Maya. Remember that. I would never do that. It was a masterful manipulation, using my fresh wound as her leverage. And part of me, the hurt, abandoned part, wanted to lean into it. To choose the parent who seemed to want me. I need to think, I mumbled. Her face fell, but she masked it with a smile. Of course, no pressure. She slid a key across the table. This is for the condo. 14B. Come anytime. Just text me. I took the key. It felt cold and heavy. That night, I lay awake on Chloe's air mattress, the key digging into my palm. I thought of Dad, alone in the house with the ghost of the shattered mug. I thought of Mom, in a condo with a view, with Robert. I thought of the man's pale blue eyes, assessing my home, my life, as a loose end. And I made a decision. I wouldn't be a loose end. I didn't go to the condo. Instead, I started investigating. It was a clumsy, teenage sort of espionage. I looked up Robert Caldwell online. His company had a sleek website. There were articles in business journals. He was 48. He'd been involved in a lawsuit a few years back, a dispute over a waterfront property. His ex-wife's name was Cynthia. I found a faded society page photo of them. She looked elegant and unhappy. I started walking by the Grand Marquis Hotel after school. On the third day, I saw them. They were coming out of the valet entrance, laughing. Robert had his hand on the small of Mom's back. A possessive, casual gesture. She was leaning into him, her face tilted up, glowing in a way I hadn't seen in years. It was the glow of being seen, of being chosen. It made me feel sick and terribly, terribly sad. She saw me. The glow vanished, replaced by shock, then a frantic, placating smile. She said something to Robert, who looked over, his expression unreadable. He gave a brief, polite nod. Mom hurried over. Maya, what are you doing here? Just walking, I said. Is this where you work? Or is this where you play house? Her cheeks flushed. Don't be cruel. This is my life now. I wish you wanted to be a part of it. With him, he's a good man, Maya. He's stable. He has plans. With your father, it was always just getting by. Dreams that went nowhere. There was a bitter edge to her voice, an ancient resentment I'd never heard. Dad's dream was as, I said quietly. Tears filled her eyes. And that wasn't enough for me. Is that so horrible? To want more? I didn't have an answer. I just watched Robert by the car, checking his watch, a man accustomed to things happening on his schedule. Did you love Dad? Ever? It was the wrong question. Her face crumpled. Oh, baby, of course I did. But love isn't always enough to keep you from drowning. She touched my cheek. Please, take the key. Come see the room. No strings. I walked away, leaving her standing on the sidewalk. I walked until my feet ached, ending up outside my own house. The lights were off. Dad's truck wasn't there. I used my key. He hadn't changed the locks, and let myself into the dark, silent tomb. I went straight to the study. I turned on the desk lamp. The filing cabinet looked undisturbed. But I started looking, not knowing what for. Bank statements, old tax returns, the deed to the house. I found a folder labeled, Sarah, Medical. Inside were old pregnancy notes, a prescription for antibiotics from years ago, and a brochure for a couples therapist, crumpled and unused. Then, at the back of the drawer, I found a manila envelope with no label. Inside were printouts of emails. They were between Mom and a generic-sounding email address, but the content was not generic. They were love letters, filled with longing and promises, dated from over a year ago. The language was florid, romantic, nothing like the practical Robert. My stomach churned. Had there been others before him? Was Robert just the latest, the most permanent, more, she'd found? The final sheet was a printed real estate listing. A waterfront property. A Luxury condo unit with stunning views. The listed agent was Robert Caldwell's company. A note was scribbled in Mom's handwriting in the margin. Our new beginning. SX. So that was it. Not just a man, but a lifestyle. A property swap. Our faded family home with its creaking doors for a shiny, view-filled box. Dad and I were the clutter to be cleared. I heard the front door open. Heavy, familiar footsteps. I froze, the damning papers in my hand. Dad stood in the doorway of the study. He looked 10 years older. He was unshaven, his eyes hollow. He stared at the papers in my hand, then at my face. You came back, he said. His voice rough. I was looking for answers. Find any. There was no anger in his tone, just a profound exhaustion. I held out the real estate listing. He took it, glanced at it, and a grim, knowing smile touched his lips. The Vikings Bay development, of course. He dropped it on the desk as if it were contaminated. He's been trying to buy up the whole block for years. I guess he finally made an offer I couldn't refuse. The cold calculation of it took my breath away. You think he targeted her to get to the house? Dad shrugged, a gesture of defeat. Does it matter? She went. He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time since he turned off the TV. I'm sorry, Maya, for telling you to go. I couldn't watch you watch her leave. I couldn't have you in the middle of that bomb blast. Tears finally spilled over, hot and relentless. I'm still in the middle. He opened his arms, a hesitant, rusty gesture. I walked into them, burying my face in his flannel shirt that smelled of sawdust and sadness. He held me tightly, his big frame shaking. We stood like that in the dim light of the study, two survivors in the wreckage. I can't stay at Chloe's forever, I whispered. I know. He took a deep, ragged breath. You can come home, if you want. It won't be the same. But it's your home, always was. It was the apology I needed. Not for kicking me out, but for the world that made it feel like his only option. I moved back home. It was a different home. Quieter. We ate meals together, but the conversation was careful, circling around the giant absence in the room. We were like astronauts on a spacewalk, connected by a fragile tether, learning to move in a new, airless environment. Mom called. She was hurt, then angry, then pleading. She couldn't believe I'd chosen that bitter, closed-off man over her and a bright future. Robert, she said, was devastated. I pictured his devastation as a slight frown over a spreadsheet. I started seeing a therapist, paid for by Dad dipping into savings he'd probably meant for a family vacation. Her office was calm, beige, safe. She taught me that my silence hadn't been a betrayal, but a survival mechanism. She told me I could be loyal to myself first. Dad started working again, taking on custom furniture commissions. The whine of the saw and the scent of fresh cut oak began to fill the house again, not as an escape, but as a reconstruction. He made me a new desk for my room, beautiful and simple, with a hidden compartment. For the things you need to keep safe, he said. I used the key Mom gave me only once. I went to the condo on a Saturday afternoon. I didn't tell her. The building was glass and steel, impersonal. The view from the 14th floor was, as promised, incredible. You could see the river, the bridges, the whole city laid out like a model. The room meant for me was pristine, decorated in neutral tones, a guest room waiting for a guest. There were no books Wai Xie de Dui Zai Chuang Tu Gui Shang, no posters on the walls, no history in the air. It was a beautiful cage. I left the key on the sterile, quartz kitchen counter and walked out. I never went back. The divorce proceedings were swift and brutal, mediated through lawyers. Mom got her freedom and a cash settlement, largely tied to her share of the house's equity. Robert, it seemed, had good lawyers. Dad kept the house, burdened with a mortgage he had to refinance alone. He looked gaunt after the final meeting, but there was a grim relief in his eyes. It was over. A month later, a for sale sign appeared in front of the house 2 doors down. Then another. Robert's company was buying up the old, modest homes on our street. The Vikings Bay development was encroaching. Our house, our stubborn, creaking, memory-filled house, was now an island holding out against a rising tide of glossy condos. One evening, Dad and I were on the back patio, watching the sunset paint the clouds. The sounds of construction were a constant drone a few blocks away. They'll make an offer on this place soon, Dad said, not looking at me. A big one. What will you do? He was quiet for a long time. I don't know. It's just a house. But it's our house. He finally looked at me. What do you want to do? I thought of the man in the peacoat, sitting in our kitchen, calling our lives loose ends. I thought of my mother, somewhere in a glass tower, choosing her view. I thought of the quiet strength in my father's workshop, building something solid from raw wood. I want to stay, I said. As long as we can. Let them build around us. We're not a loose end. We're a foundation. Dad's eyes glistened in the fading light. He nodded, reached over, and squeezed my hand. It was the first time we'd touched since that day in the study. The connection was a lifeline, pulling us both back to a shore we were learning to stand on together. The story of my mother was no longer my story. It was her choice, her current. Mine was here, in this imperfect, enduring house, with the man who turned off the TV and, in his own broken way, tried to save me from the flood. I wasn't quiet anymore. I was learning to speak, to build, to hold my ground. The man had shown up, and in his wake, I had found out who I was, and who would stay. The offer came, as predicted, in a thick, cream-colored envelope. It looked more like a wedding invitation than a corporate buyout. Dad left it unopened on the new desk he'd built me for 2 days. On the third morning, he took it to the workshop. I heard the shredder whir, a brief, angry sound swallowed by the patient scent of sawdust. That was our answer. Vikings Bay rose around us. First the skeleton of steel, then the skin of glass, reflecting our own shingled house back at us in distorted, paneled fragments. Our yard, once flowing seamlessly into the neighbors, now ended at a pristine 8-foot fence erected by the developers, a barricade of fresh cedar, as if our memories might contaminate their new paradise. We named it, the Great Wall of Robert. Dad even burned the words into a small, discreet plaque and nailed it to our side. The noise was constant, but we got used to it. The whine of the saw became our counter rhythm. While they built upward, we built inward. Dad's commissions changed. He stopped making simple bookshelves and started crafting pieces with history. A dining table from reclaimed barn wood for a young couple, a cradle from a fallen black walnut tree for a soon-to-be grandmother. He poured the story of our street, our fight, into the grain. I used my desk's hidden compartment. In it, I placed the shredded pieces of the buyout offer, a photo of my parents smiling on a long-ago beach, and the single, unopened letter my mother had sent to the house, addressed only to me. I didn't need to read it to know what it said. It was enough to know it was there, a fossil of a different life, sealed away. My therapy sessions shifted from survival to construction. You've stopped bracing for impact, my therapist observed one day, a small smile on her face. Now you're drawing blueprints. I enrolled in a part-time architectural drafting course at the community college. I found I loved the clean lines, the intention, the balance of load and support. I started sketching, not Vikings Bay towers, but thoughtful, low-slung homes that fit into landscapes instead of dominating them. I showed Dad one of my sketches, a house with a wide, sheltered porch. It's a good porch, he said, his finger tracing the lines. For watching sunsets, and for seeing who's coming. Mom's life, glimpsed through the distant lens of social media and a single awkward coffee we had in a neutral downtown cafe, was a study in curated brightness. She was always traveling, always smiling beside Robert, who now looked perpetually slightly bored by his own success. Her bright future was a series of perfect backdrops. She asked about the house, about the noise. She said Robert's firm's offer was still technically on the table, if the stubbornness wears off. When I didn't respond, she